And now, chance to meet another of the candidates in the West Douglas by-election, Chris Thomas. And first of all, we're going to talk about what you might have done if you've been in government. That's how I want to do these things, rather than just talking about your manifesto. But you have stood before. Liberal Vannon, I'd like to just clear that one up, why you're not under their flag this time.
Thank you, Paul. Independent. My first doubt was in October 2011, immediately after the election, because manifesto and policy is important to me. And you know, just before that, we'd had coalition agreements in the United Kingdom, and there's a long history of forming governments of national unity with coalition agreements, but I couldn't really see how the policies in the manifesto that I'd stood on were actually incorporated into the Government of National Unity programme.
But when you first got together, you could see it, and then what, you just disagreed? I mean, because a lot of people also had the same thing, that, you know, it fell by the wayside. You did think it was a good idea, but it just wasn't going to...
You misunderstood this, Paul, I'm sorry. Basically, the manifesto is fine. My manifesto is fine. The Liberal Vannon manifesto is fine. Okay. I was a very important part in putting that together. I'm talking about post-election. Yeah. You know, the people spoke. There were only 3 Liberal Vannon MHKs. They chose to join the... They chose to join the Government of National Unity, and there were certain things in the manifesto that weren't in the Government of National Unity's programme that I was I would have been stronger and tougher on negotiating some of those points if I'd have had a say. But that wasn't the most important moment. The most important moment was February 2012, when we were when I was you know, planning my attempt to be in Douglas Council, and I perceived that there was an expectation that my manifesto would be approved in some way by the party, and as I'd always made it clear that my understanding was that Liberal Vannon was a party that didn't have a whip system, but it did believe in working together, having a policy, having a manifesto, making elections based on putting something to the electorate for a mandate that you would then work as a team to get implemented later on. I was slightly uncomfortable with that, so I went independent, and there were also a couple of policy issues at the time, so if you go back you can see what those policy issues were, but that was when the decision was made.
How would you describe yourself if you were under UK politics? You know, where would you see yourself then?
I'm not sure that's a relevant question, but
well, just to give people an idea, you know, where you stand.
My colours are orange and purple, and orange is about working together. That's the colour that the early American politicians use. That's the colour that the Whigs use. That's about working together, as independents have to do. You know, in Tynwald you have to have 17 people to get anything through, and orange is my most important colour for working together. Purple is normally the colour of the people, and that's one of the 7 Ps that are very important for me in this election. Yeah. Shall I tell you about the other 6?
Well, maybe not now, but let's talk about things now. If you'd been in government, this is what I was trying to get with everyone. I'm putting the same sort of ideas to, and obviously the Sefton's one of those big things. If you and I don't think go to a vote, but I want you to be definite yes or no if you can. How you would have gone with that? Would you have been in favour of what the government did, or would you have been against them?
Against.
Just like that. I mean, because.
For 14 months I've actually been working on the Cambrian Place car park, the £13 million borrowed money reserves finance car park, which was a catalyst for the Sefton Group. So I know pretty well the 2011 Sefton Group accounts. I know pretty well, you know, the action that's going on along the promenade, and I was always doubtful that the council should be going ahead alone as a catalyst for the development of a hotel site next door without the government, without a clear contract with the private sector. When the contract came along, I voted for it because there was 3 conditions in the contract. Number 1, planning permission was obtained. Number 2, government agreed it. Number 3, government had to agree 2 things. 1, they borrowed money, and 2, the purchase of the land next door to the Sefton site. That's all background relevant because I was sceptical about all those things along the way, and in the end I was proved right because Sefton Group project in Middlemarch isn't going ahead for the time being. What was wrong for me about the Sefton Group contract was primarily based on that plot of land there. You know, I cannot see why the Land Property Acquisition Reserve was not used to outright purchase that land. Then the government would have had all of the land, and we could have had a proper integrated, better value site there.
We haven't got too much time, but Shepperton deal. What do you think to that one?
Against.
Against, right.
The reserves went from 40 to 36 million under the fund managers, I would have had a tender for the fund management contract. That money that we spent on Shepperton could have gone a long way to sorting out the potholes and sorting out MEA debt, and there are two more of the P's in my 7. We're getting there. One is prices and one is potholes. If you want to deal with potholes, you have to have a proper town plan, and prices, electricity is very profound importance.
What about charging people to go to university, the students? Will you be for that idea or against it?
I'm for the idea of students making a contribution, and I haven't met a student who doesn't think that's fair. It's just I'd be a bit humiliated if I was Humphrey in the Department of Education, who had to bring the regulations all of those times, and even when they went through, there was still lots of ambiguity about how they would work in practice. So I would have voted against, just as a because the regulations at that point were still not clear about.
Well, you had a different plan. I mean, it's okay voting against, but would you have been able to say?
Very much so, very much so. And if I'm the MHK for West Douglas in June, straight away I will be working with Treasury to put together more than just a declaratory motion. I'll be working to put together a financial motion, for which you have to have the consent of Treasury, and that's one of the areas where I'll be prepared to work with others to put something forward. Will
you work with Mr Bell? Would you like to be in his government?
I'm putting a programme for government. One thing to say is it's a bit disappointing that the June Tinwold, all the departmental memberships have already been given out, but even more importantly, all of the policy review committees, the unpaid work where you scrutinise government and you come up with.
He has said there's room for the person that's coming in. He hasn't made that clear because he's going to have another reshuffle. So you'd like to get in there straight away, would you? Not sit back and if it was you that got in?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get in there straight away, hit the ground running, but you misunderstood it. What I'm saying is, because all those departmental membership positions were allocated in the last couple of weeks, this May Tinwold, May the 21st Tinwold, all of the policy review committees, or some people call them scrutiny committees, are also having their membership made up. If I was thinking about my role, I would think it was most likely to be in one of those committees, but they're all fixed.